Welcome, guys. This is starting Unit 3 here, the rise of the progressive era. So, in your notebooks, you would go to your unit title page and write Unit 3, and then the name of the unit, which is the rise of the progressive era. And that's all you need to put there for now. Eventually, you're going to draw 5 symbols to represent this time period. We'll get back to that later, however. Moving on to the right side, in your notebook, you should write Unit 3 objectives at the top, and you need to copy down these 4 objectives here. So these are the 4 main things we're going to be focusing on in this upcoming unit. We're going to talk about the effects of industrialization on farmers and the resulting populist movement. We're going to talk about the political, economic, and social goals of the progressive movement. We're going to identify the limits of progressivism in regards to civil rights. And then finally, we're going to explain the role of women in the progressive movement. Moving on again, you should be turning your page again, and at the top of this page, write preview. And then you need to answer the following question on your preview page. Why are farmers important to society? And how many things can you think of that we routinely buy from farmers? So you're writing a sentence talking about why they're important, and then you're basically making a list, which that list is probably a lot larger than you realize. So really try and dig deep and think about how many things that you buy, which originally come from farmers. If you have any questions about this, come talk to me about it in class. Moving on to the next page, we're going to start our lecture now. So the theme today, the objective today is to analyze the populist movement and specifically how the populist movement changed the American political system permanently and the way it actually affects us to this day. So problems for farmers. First of all, overproduction of crops led to something called crop surpluses, which brought down the prices. So farmers were producing too many crops, and this excess crops in the market caused the value of the crops to go down. Basically, technology had gotten so good at this point that farmers were producing more than they could sell at a livable wage. And on top of that, farmers were being taken advantage of by the banks because the farmers, in order to produce this massive amount of crops, in order to compete, they had to borrow money to buy the supplies to produce these extra crops. And then they had to pay that money back with high interest rates. And so they're borrowing money to make more crops, which is making the crops cheaper. And what they're finding out is they can't make their ends meet. They can't pay the bills. So here's what they end up doing. They say, okay, I was $100 short on breaking even. So obviously what I need to do is grow $100 more worth of crops. So they would go to the bank, take out another loan to buy enough land to produce more crops to make up for that deficit the following year. Well, here's what would happen. A lot of farmers were doing that at the same exact time. So all of these farmers were taking out loans to make more land, to make more crops, and the value of the crops continued to go down, which meant they could not break even. On top of that, the railroads, which was really the main way in which farmers had access to getting their food to the cities. So they produce their food in the rural areas, and it's transported to the cities where it's consumed by the masses. The railroads are the main form of transportation for that. And because the railroads are monopolized, there's no competition. They can charge whatever prices they want. And so this is another way in which farmers feel as though they are being taken advantage of. They're doing this job that is so essential to helping urban America exist. Urban America cannot exist simply without agriculture. That's just the way it is. And they are being taken advantage of by all these people who are doing extremely well. So they feel like they're getting ripped off. They're in a vicious cycle of increasing debt. Once again, borrowing money to buy supplies, then borrowing money to get more land to produce more food, and then borrowing more money to buy more land to make up for the deficit as the crop prices continue to go down. And so farmers are going to realize that they're all going through the same struggle, and the only way they're going to get a change is they're going to unite. So this leads to the rise of populism. Populism, or the populist movement, their goal is to give people more voice in the government and to advance the roles of farmers and laborers. So they felt like the government was ignoring their problem. And what they're going to do is they're going to change U.S. politics forever. In our previous unit, we learned about this whole idea of laissez-faire capitalism, right? The big business guys thought the government should stay out of business. The populists are different because the populists are saying government needs to protect people from being taken advantage of by big business. And so this is the precursor to the progressive movement. One populist group was known as the National Grange. They fought railroads by sponsoring the state legislation to regulate railroads. They actually supported one of two possibilities. They either wanted the national government to nationalize railroads altogether, make them publicly owned so that farmers would be charged fair prices, or they wanted the government to regulate those railroads to insist that they were being charged fair rates for shipping these goods to the market. They also favored something called bimetallism for backing up currency. What they wanted to do with bimetallism is give the government more ability to put more money into the economy. So this is something of a complicated concept, but first of all, you have to know what inflation is. Inflation is when the value of your money goes down, meaning that prices go up. And so for the populist movement, this is a tough sell to people in the cities who are going to have to deal with the fact that their food prices are going to go up. However, for farmers, this is essential because by giving the government the ability to put more money into the economy, it means that over time, the loans that they owe, as they're paying them back, will become less and less valuable. So the wealthy, they want just gold to back up the money because they want a stable dollar that's not going to have any inflation whatsoever. But everybody else actually benefits from inflation, moderate amounts of inflation. We're not talking hyperinflation like Germany, but moderate amounts of inflation to ensure that basically wealth is being more spread out. But what happens is when you produce more money, the value of that money goes down. And so for the wealthy, that value of that wealth that they have eventually begins to diminish over time. William Jennings Bryan pictured down here is the really one of the more famous products of the whole bimetallism populist movement. He gave his Cross of Gold speech in which he basically said that Americans are being crucified on a cross of gold, referring to the gold standard, that the wealthy wanted to protect their wealth so much by linking it to gold that the wealthy are essentially crucifying the poor by making it a gold standard as opposed to giving the more flexibility to the monetary system by allowing bimetallism, which allows more money to go into the economy, which allows more people to generate more wealth. So that's the whole idea behind populism is this idea of increasing people's role in government. And the bigger picture here is in regards to populism, is that it essentially changed American politics forever. That's the big message I want you to get from this lesson overall. Not so much the specifics of the populists and what they believed. You do need to know that. But what you really need to understand here is they were effective. Their voices were heard. They started this whole idea that you can start a movement in which people protest and they demand change from their government, and the government has to do it. So that's what I want you to consider here. Anyways, in relation to the sides and the whole gold bugs versus silver rights issue, this is just kind of a basic breakdown. So people who supported the gold standard were typically bankers and businessmen, while the silver rights were farmers and laborers. What the gold bug supported was a gold standard, less money in circulation, while the silver rights favored bimetallism, more money in circulation to create inflation. Why did the gold bugs support the gold standard? Because their loans would be repaid in stable money, while the silverites benefited from in the inflation created for two reasons. Obviously, because the value of their debt went down over time, but also because they could sell their products, their agricultural products at higher prices on the market as well. And that's once again why this was kind of an awkward relationship between the laborers and the farmers, because the laborers were affected by these higher prices as well. So you had to kind of convince these laborers that, one of the good things about inflation is, food prices are going up, but your wages are also going to go up too as a result of inflation. And then finally, the gold bugs, they want deflation. They want prices to fall. They want their money to become more valuable without having to do any work. And the silver rights support inflation. They want basically the prices to rise and the money value to decrease. And as crazy as that sounds, inflation is typically associated with economic growth. So when economies are growing, you're generating wealth, which means there's more money in the economy, which means you're going to have some inflation because people's wages are going up. Deflation is not a good thing from an economic standpoint because usually it means that money is rare in the economy, that people are having a hard time finding work and people are having a hard time getting a good paying job. That's when deflation occurs. So, yeah, things are cheap, but people don't have any source for affording that stuff. All right, finally wrapping this up, we're going to be doing this in class, not here on this lesson, but you're going to be looking at the speech of William Jennings Bryan, the Cross of Gold speech. This is a political cartoon of him, and you're going to be analyzing the 7 parts of the William Jennings Bryan 1896 Cross of Gold speech at the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. So enjoy, and we'll be doing this in class, but if you have to do this independently, come talk to me, and I'll answer any questions that you have. All right, take care.